everybody. Today I want to talk to you about something that I've talked about in the past, but it's really been on my mind a lot lately, and that is the topic of commitment versus interest, and also how being brutally honest with ourselves is important, and how being completely honest with ourselves about interest versus commitment can actually set us up for success rather than failure. So what we're talking about today can fit into any topic, whether you are, starting a new business venture, a new art project, maybe you're starting a new wellness journey, maybe you are, working your business or whatever. I think I just already said that. So whatever you're doing in your life, maybe you're trying to get organized, you're trying to like Marie Kondo your house and you're trying to get rid of everything. Whatever it is you're trying to do in your life, it's important to be completely honest with ourselves if it's an interest or a commitment, and how committed are we? So basically, let's talk about interest versus commitment, and then talk about how it's okay to change our commitments, to reevaluate our commitments, and how it's okay to be that it's important to set our commitments at a realistic level. So again, being honest with ourselves. So an interest is something, maybe you're interested in completely decluttering and reorganizing your house. Maybe you have been binge watching on Netflix, Marie Kondo, and you're like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to totally declutter my house. That's great. You have an interest in that. Now is the piece of being brutally honest with yourself. Are you actually committed to decluttering your house? Really sit there and think about, okay, I'm super interested in this, but am I committed? What will it actually take for me to declutter my house? And maybe you want to make a list of like each room and each part of your room that you would need to declutter. Be realistic about how, what time frame are you giving yourself? Be realistic on, is this, as you're making this list, you might be like, I don't know, this really doesn't sound like that fun anymore. This sounds kind of overwhelming. This sounds like I don't really want to do this. It's important to be honest with ourselves. It's okay to be interested in something and not make it a commitment and not actually follow through with it. That's okay. We all have lots of interests. And honestly, if we all tried to pursue everything that we were interested in every time we got that little spark of, ooh, that sounds interesting, we wouldn't be able to do it. We can't do all the things all the time. So it's important to be honest with yourself. Now, here's the thing too. Maybe you are a little interested and a little committed. Don't oversell yourself, So if you're not really ready to jump all into decluttering your entire house, maybe make the promise to yourself to commit to one room and see how it goes. And then you can reevaluate. Okay, is this still an interest and a commitment of mine? Am I willing to make the time and devote the energy to cleaning a second room? And again, it is okay at any point of the interest versus commitment journey, you are allowed to reevaluate and you're allowed to take a step back or make it a little more difficult. So, maybe you're interested and you're committed and you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to just jump all the way in. I'm going to do this one room. So you do the one room and then you're like, that was amazing. That was incredible. I feel great. Maybe it wasn't that amazing and that incredible, but you feel great. So you're like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and just push through because it felt so great. I'm going to do another room. And maybe you just do one room after another. You don't have to set the goal to commit to your whole house all at once. You can do these baby steps. You can commit to baby steps. And that's the part about commitment that I think is really important, is being honest with yourself as to what you can truly and honestly commit to and what you are truly and honestly willing to commit to. Because if you say, yes, I'm 100% committed to doing it all, and then you don't do it all, you feel bad about yourself. You feel, like, oh, I failed. I didn't do this right. I suck. Whatever you say to yourself, because we all say really bad things to ourselves from time to time. But you set yourself up for failure because you weren't being honest with yourself from the get-go, because sometimes it sounds good to go all in. I've used this example for myself before with like fitness and healthy eating. Like, it sounds so good to be one of those people that wakes up at 5 a.m. and goes on a 3-mile jog, and I only eat fresh vegetables, and, you know, I go to the gym 6 days a week, and I'm lifting weights, and I'm doing all these, like, that sounds amazing, honestly. Like, that sounds great. Am I really committed to that? Hell no, I'm not. No, I am not committed to that. Am I committed to making baby steps? Yes. And so that's where it comes into, like, if you're interested in something, I keep saying, and that's where it comes into, but if you're interested in something, make a list of the steps or the things that it would take for you to achieve that thing that you're interested in, and break it down. So you break it down, that helps you to see, like, okay, am I really committed into all of this? Because that's a lot. Or am I committed to doing 1 or 2 of these things and taking baby steps? And then once you accomplish those 1 or 2 things, you can then move on to something else on that list, and something else and something else. And before you know it, you have completed or achieved what it was that you set out to do. So like for me right now with my health and wellness, I was like, I want to do yoga 7 days a week. Like, I can totally commit to yoga 7 days a week. But then I sat down and I really thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? Like, let's be honest with ourselves, Therese. Like, that sounds good, you know, and that would look good to the world. You could share it with the world that you do yoga 7 days a week. You'd probably feel really good doing yoga 7 days a week. But Therese, are you truly committed to doing yoga 7 days a week? And we're going to touch on what it means to be committed in just a moment too. And so I had that little conversation with myself, and I'm like, you know what, Therese, no, you are not committed to 7 days a week. You are not. And then I thought, okay, well, what am I committed to? Because I did decide that it wasn't just that I was interested in yoga. I did want to commit myself to some sort of yoga path. And so I thought, you know what? Definitely, I could commit to 3 days a week. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. I can do 3 days a week for sure. Possibly maybe 5. Like, 3 is my bare minimum. 5 is like, that's awesome. And so that's now my new goal. And that feels good. It doesn't feel like pressured. And that's how you'll be able to tell as well if you are committing to the right thing. It won't have that element of kind of feeling pressured or even dread almost. You're going to feel good about it, and you're going to feel like, yeah, I can do this. And that's how I feel about these 3 days of yoga. And some of you may be like, really, 3 days of yoga? That's nothing. But you know what? For me, that's something, because my yoga practice is so inconsistent. And I know I can commit to 3 days a week. Another thing that I recently committed to was my water intake. I have a bottle of water, and I'm committed to drinking 85 ounces of water a day. And again, some people may be like, that's not much. Some people may be like, holy crap, that's incredible. 85 ounces of water for me was a realistic goal that I was committed to doing. And the first day was kind of rough, and I didn't hit it. But then I'm like, you know what? And that was my moment too. I didn't hit my goal for that first day. And that was my moment to think, okay, am I really committed to this? Should I stick at the 85 ounces? Should I lower it a few ounces or something? And I thought, you know what? No, there's no reason I cannot do 85 ounces. So I decided I'm committing to it. I'm sticking with it. I'm going to get these 85 ounces of water. And I have now for like 4 or 5 days in a row, and it's been incredible. So, I mean, I think you're seeing a theme here of being honest with ourselves, and also of like where we're at and what our realistic goals are and what our realistic commitments are. Because when we are committed to something, it means that we are doing it. It means that even if you have a crazy week, you are still doing those things that you set out to do, that you promised yourself that you were going to do. Being committed means, you know, you're not making excuses. And that falls into being honest with ourselves, brutally honest with ourselves. You know, I could make up all the excuses in the world, which actually I almost did that the other day because I was at work and I was kind of busy and I didn't have a chance to really drink a whole bunch of water. And it was getting towards the end of the day. I got home from work and I'm like, oh man, I still haven't drank, you know, this much water. And then I'm like, oh, well, you know, I had a busy day. I was busy at work and it's okay. And I stopped myself right in my tracks of telling myself these excuses, that these excuses were okay. And I'm like, that is not an excuse. Doesn't matter that I didn't drink water for this window of time. I can do it now. Like, I'm not in bed yet. I have no excuse to not do it. So when you are committing to something, you are pushing aside the excuses. You're pushing aside the excuses of, oh, I had a busy day. Then go to bed later. Wake up earlier the next day. You know, when we commit to something, it's not always easy. It's not always easy. And I think sometimes people give up on their commitments because they think it's going to be easy. It's like we tell ourselves like, oh, now that I've committed and I've made this decision, it's going to be easy. And it's not always easy. And that's the thing. We have to push ourselves. But at the same time, you have to be honest with yourself. So if you are pushing yourself and then you're getting to the point like, this isn't fun, I don't want to do this, reevaluate. Are you not wanting to do this because it's not as easy as you thought it would be, but you still really want to go for that goal? Then go for it. Push yourself, because you're going to feel amazing once you reach that goal. And you're probably going to feel pretty crappy if you give up on yourself. But on the other hand, if you're pushing through and then you're like, you know what? Like, yeah, this may be a little difficult, but I don't like this. Like, I don't have the same drive to reach that goal. But be honest with yourself. Don't just give up because it's getting a little too difficult. Not everything in life is easy. So just be honest with yourself and don't give up on yourself just because it's hard. If you've gotten to the point that maybe that's not your goal anymore, or maybe you're starting to work towards it and you're like, you know what, this isn't as like awesome as I thought it would be. This isn't really something that my heart is in. Then it's okay to maybe pull back a little bit or switch gears or even just like stop what it is that you're working towards. But again, don't just do it because it got a little difficult. And don't just make excuses because it got a little difficult. Always have that open conversation with yourself of being brutally honest. If you're not brutally honest with yourself and you're not setting realistic, attainable goals that maybe push you out of your comfort zone a little bit, if you're not doing that, you're not going to grow and you're setting yourself up for failure. If you're just diving all in, you know, you're reaching for the moon without, you know, planning the steps and really being honest with yourself of like, do you really want to reach that moon? Maybe you don't really want to reach it. So just be brutally honest with yourself. Break down your goals to smaller, achievable, realistic goals that maybe push you out of your comfort zone just a little bit, enough to get you to have some growth, but not so difficult that it makes you want to give up. That's the key too. We want to, you know, we want to have achievable goals, but that we kind of have to work towards a little bit. Because if everything comes easy to us, then it's not really teaching us to grow, and we're not growing and learning and expanding. So I hope that this helps you with kind of the difference between interest versus commitment, and how when you do decide to commit to something, you set yourself up for success and not failure. So yeah, let me know your comments below as far as your thoughts on like interest versus commitment, and what are you committing yourself to right now? Or maybe there's something that you were interested in and then you decided not to commit to it, or what are you committing to? Oh, and also just because you are interested in something and you don't commit to it today doesn't mean that you can't commit to it in the future. You can always come back to things. So, all right, I will talk to you guys later. Follow me on Instagram, ShariceWilliams.xo, and I will talk to all you guys later. Bye. End meeting. End meeting, I said.